Hello guys, here I am, Dr. Anatole, and behind the camera is Mike. And we've been having lots of fun together in the last couple days. And we want to talk about what else? We want to talk about the eternal question about students and teachers. Mike had a
Okay,
intro.
I want to begin with a few assumptions. Two assumptions, in fact. One is, you and I, specifically, were born and continue to live as wise old men. Our whole lives. I think that's a pretty safe beginning assumption. And two, students both implicitly and explicitly tell their teachers what they need. Sometimes what they want, but mostly there's a way that they tell you what they need. And it's not always in words, but they do. So, this is my attempt to say, this is what I need from you. Or what I think I need from you if I'm qualifying it. Which is, I need you to shed your 20s and 30s. It's not an easy thing to request, and I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do. But the things you're writing discuss finding your truth or your path in a mostly non-denominational way. But when we talk, we're always discussing lineage and history and where these thoughts came from. And in part, that's expertise and where your current knowledge has come from. But in part, it matters to you because of your 20s and 30s. And relatively speaking, they don't matter to me. They matter because I like talking to you and I care about you and all of those things, but they're not experiences that I've had, and so they don't resonate with me in the same way. And as a history student, just talking about history is interesting, but it doesn't engage the things I might need. So I'm looking for you not to be tied to that stuff because you're able to talk about thought forms and newly defined words about how people get stuck without thousands of years of weight and dogma and blah 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 behind them, which many people cannot do. But that's what draws me to you and your writing. All of the other stuff is, as turmeric and cumin, flavor, not substance. I'm of course capable of carrying contradictory thoughts in my mind, as are you, and many people are, but many people aren't. Your non-traditional wisdom and your devotion to your history, and of course are capable of existing in my head at the same time. But they fight in my mind. And they keep my mind engaged in the conversation and even afterwards. And here's where I'm getting to what I think is the point, which is, if I keep my mind working on these contradictory things, I'm not clear to take off into Wonderland with my feelings and my spirit. Maybe that's all talking out of my ass. But it appears to be true in all forms of experience, that the more your brain is working, the less you actually feel it. So as a student, I'm asking my teacher to file away or help file away this contradiction so that I can better feel my way through this darkness to find the light.
Well, I have many comments about this. Your point actually is well made, even though I would qualify it a little bit. Well, first of all, regarding you being, or me being, a little wise man since very young age, I think part of it personality, but a very big part of it is that both of us are very old souls. And don't tell me for a second that you don't know that. That's why, for example, in many ways, the teaching that you would receive is to my taste, because of the distinction that I make all the time, and certainly in my videos, the distinction between life coaching and actually spiritual teaching. And what you're bringing up is very much along that. It's like deepening that thing. Most people interacting with the world, they want to have better interactions. It's like, well, how do I talk to my boss so that I get a raise? How do I deal with my parents who are driving me crazy? Or worse, if your parents are not driving you crazy, then you will not have the opportunity to see the attachment and the love, which is wonderful on a psychological level, but it also binds you on a spiritual level. So in some ways, having crazy parents is actually good, because it offers you an opportunity to become resolve your incredible neuroticism, which will happen from that. Now, going back to why I talk a lot about history, several things. Number one, if you carefully notice what I talk about, it has roughly two components. One is super significant, because these gurus I'm talking about, they were not just dogmatic artifact of history. These were the real people who were really made tremendous contributions. But any contributing guru teacher will have a huge, in Russian we would say ballast, they would have a huge layer of BS, of dogma, or just tradition around it, which is a very big problem that I always try to push against. Because, quite frankly, in the West, we do not have Enlightenment tradition. We are importing Eastern, essentially Hindu, and the derivative, because Buddhism is a derivative of Hinduism. It's a derivative that went very, very far. But Vedanta, which is more or less what we're talking about all day long anyway, but you don't have to know what it is right this moment. But basically, we're talking about higher end of spirituality. This is where you're not bowing to deities in one form or another. You don't have a golden bull that you're worshipping in whichever form, either in the form of religion or in the form of teaching, etc. So you become free of this. And these people have done that. But there's nothing wrong with people adoring these people, okay? But your point is huge, because whole my last 30 years I've been thinking, cogitating, and more meditating than anything else about starting a really true bona fide, I'll have to use the word lineage. It's basically starting a tradition, a teaching, of whatever, why that's why we call it teachings vortices, because we don't want to use the word, teachings, because that's not what works in the West. It doesn't work anywhere. And this is where we come to the main point of everything I do. When you talk to me, at least for me, in the back of my mind, put this in quotes because I'm not thinking about that, and certainly not about just about anything. The teaching that is not life coaching is necessarily so-called vibrational. In other words, you learn something through some other means. It's meditative. And people who come around the teacher, they can feel, oh my God, there is some kind of peace, something that I'm attracted to. That something is that old wisdom from a wise guy who was wise since the age of, 2 or something. And that's all there is to it. We can talk about anything else. We can talk about that chair with my glasses, my spare glasses sitting on it. Like that. In fact, I should have recorded this video in those glasses, because those glasses look much better on the video than these things with a chip. These are old glasses I have on, but I'm comfortable in them, I'm getting old, these glasses are older than 9 years, By the way, talking of what really holds, Eastern glasses, these lenses made in India, they don't really have scratches. 9 years, of having almost nothing on them, that's amazing. I've never had glasses like that before. You know. So, how's that for?
Well, I think it's a partial answer.
Yeah.
You found so many new ways to say things that don't rely on the past. So that's what you should be doing more of. So that's one.
But the problem with this is that you really cannot talk well about it. So you need to develop a new language.
So we need to keep developing it and not only talk.
You are right on.
Right.
So basically, the reason why we talk about anything is because we cannot talk about the main thing.
Right.
Because there's no language for it. You know. So you know, that's why, you know, like, people come to a teacher or to a figure, to whatever. I mean, I had similar experience with the statue of Hanuman. I'm not going to mention where it is because I don't want to advertise, you know, any particular anything. You know, and it was scintillating with energy. And to me, it was like, and it blew my mind a little bit because I am against worshiping statues. Okay, but there was something that was there in that room coming from that murti, that image was alive, and pretty much any, you know, Indian, well, let's call it Hindu, I don't like this word, but basically from that neck of the woods, and you know, Tibetan Buddhist would understand that images can be made alive. This kind of thing is crazy for a Western person. So to me, both because of my prejudice and my Western prejudice, you know, that you know, was weird. What do we do? Why did it happen? Will people come and worship new teachers? Yes, they will, especially if you're like in your 20s, when you are still in that adoring space. It's like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. Well, you know, he eats, sleeps, and, forgive me, farts like anyone else. And you know, when you get close to 40, close to death, you know, you realize that, oh my God, I know that's just how it goes. But notice that I'm talking around it.
Right.
So in the book, you know, I have to talk about important things which we should talk about. So for example, that there are hierarchies which we're all climbing. And we're talking right now climbing the spiritual hierarchy. But most people don't climb spiritual hierarchy. They usually climb 3 hierarchies. Well, there's a reason why there are 3 or 4 of them, because in the base chakra there are 4 expressions. They're fundamental. And I'm not sure if what I'm talking about actually jives with that, but it doesn't matter. The most basic hierarchy people, you know, is getting married, having a job, having children, growing, you know, bringing these children up into decent people, and then dying. And you know, everything in their life is subservient to that mostly biological thing. There's nothing wrong about it, and they feel satisfied from it. There are intellectual people. These will be the professors and lawyers, etc., where, you know, you want to make a contribution to the intellectual world, you know, and it's very important. And these people, you know, they will grow a stomach because they don't care about you know, doing sports. They care about reading books and you know, and improving their intellectual understanding. And you know, both you and me most certainly come from that kind of background. There is also artistic background, and artistic background is you know, is very close to spiritual background, spiritual hierarchy, in the sense that these people want to bring something out of not their intellect but their inspirational mind. And you can say that spiritual hierarchy is about bringing the causal mind, the God's mind, out to the front. But there is one little thing about this. In the societies, any society, 3 hierarchies are understood. Spiritual hierarchy is always against the first 3. So if you start climbing a spiritual ladder, the society is going to turn on you because you're going to see all the rewards, whatever you call them. And and if you're like this guy Drukpa Kunley, you're going to laugh about these things and show what I'm not going to say on the video, to people who who are basically stuck and dull, and pretty much all his life he was basically making fun of people who were, well, deluded. And I have a little bit of that too. I mean, I'm no way gonna claim that I'm anywhere near someone like him. So, but anyway, whatever it is, I think what's happening, particularly people who are older than us, means those who were born, who are in their 20s right now, is that I can feel this whole change big time. And and they want to have a new tradition, and that's why we have this pandemic coming in. That's why we have this big shake-up in the in the political environment, and we have just started the shaking up. Who knows how it's probably going to take hundreds of years for it to shake out. Talking along the same thing is that we're moving now from the age of organized religions, where we're going to have much smaller tradition systems, much more tailored to individual tastes. And that's why, for example, I have my own YouTube channel, because I'm interested in people who tune in with me, rather than starting this huge worldwide movement, which will be necessarily diluted by people who frankly I don't want to see at all. Not that they have no place in the society, they have plenty of place in society. It's just I want to have people who are interesting to me, and I want to be around people to who I'm interesting.
So right there, you've now expressed, without most of the dogma and history, exactly what you're after.
Yes, I can.
But what I'm trying to get at is that's what I want to see more of.
Well, let's do it.
Right.
We need to have someone who is stimulating me. You're stimulating me. Yes.
So then the second point is still the same, which is, if my mind is working too hard, it's blocking the other things from finding what they need to find.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Talk about that.
The thing is, I'm just checking for those behind the camera. We have something baking in the oven for very material consumption. We're not gonna tell you, but the smell is very nice. Vegetarian. We didn't catch anyone in the backyard. So we bought it in the store, organic too. What you were talking about? Just the last thing you said. The mind. The thing is, spiritual hierarchy that people climb. It has a really funny thing around willpower. On the one hand, you can become conscious of it and kind of part the obstacle a little bit with the will. But on the other hand, will interferes with with so-called spiritual progress. I call it climbing the greasy pole of the hierarchy. It has to come from your soul, and there's not very much you can do about it. That's why they say that at that stage of you need to kind of have pointing out instructions. In other words, rather than saying do this, the teacher will say don't really do this, because you already know what you want, you already see it. But if you go in this direction, you'll just create more of an obstacle, and then there's no need to do it. So the preparation kind of has been already done, and people like you're actually a very good example. Josh, by the way, is another good example. You're already born with pretty high understanding not intellectual. Intellectually, you don't know shit about these things, okay? But who cares about this? It really is not important, and that's why you're reacting to it. It's like, to me, when I was younger, these stories were fascinating, and I'm not going to tell you that they were really, well, they were inspirational in some ways for a young guy. But talking of that, you know how many books I have? This is 1/3 of my books. The other 2/3 are in my parents' basement. I never read these books, and I haven't read them since at least 20 years. So basically, since I moved from California, which was in '99, I haven't touched these books. They're just decoration. They're waiting for someone like you, not like you, because you're not going to find these books, which is exactly what we're talking about. I mean, it's not entirely true. There are maybe 2 or 3 books that are okay there. But to me, I don't think so. That's why I started writing my own books, because I don't think that these books are, minus very few, and even those very few, no, okay, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with these books. It's just they're gonna leave you a little bit dissatisfied, or a lot, or they become literature. Means they're fascinating. You can read them. Why not? So, for example, the biography of Drukpa Kunley, I think it's a fascinating book, and I think that you should read it. I mean, I wouldn't read the introduction, because the introduction is a whole bunch of these references to the history, exactly. And then the book, in my mind, it really starts when he was 25. He realized that he was surrounded by bullshitters in the monastery. I mean, he spent many years in the monastery, and he had full-blown realization. So he went back to do what? To live with his mother. And the mother didn't understand what was going on at all. She thought that he was a lapsed monk. Just perfect example of this. And that happened 500 years ago. Is it different from now? No. The only thing is that culture, of course, is different. Here we come from the university and say that, sorry, Mom, I don't want to study.
Our ability to retain information has grown, not internally, but in terms of keeping history in a form that's not just a spoken word. Well, that has improved. Mm-hmm. In those 500 years.
Well, here's the thing: the whole environment has changed, and let's not go.
I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole.
Exactly. The bottom line of it is this: we have had this talk, in the car. We didn't record it. We don't, we talk all day long. We don't record it. It's like right now we have taken this professional camera out because of the light, and because of this and because of that. So the thing is, the bottom line of it is this: there are 2 groups of people that we're gonna attract. Those who will listen to these videos, read my books, and that's about it. And then people who will, in some form or another, make a very strong move to have a personal relationship with me. That by its nature is going to be very limited.
Right.
By my personality, by my time, and by, so I will have to be really, really selective. Now, I have to warn the people behind the camera is that you should not think that, oh my God, I'm not worthy. Rather, you should just completely drop this idea that whether you're worthy or not.
None of that matters.
Right. What matters is that if your heart says yes, that's the call you need to, really listen to it. My goal is, I would like to procure a place where people can maybe visit but more live, and have it so funded that people can come and they can stay there for free and get even a stipend. And I want to have people who are not, basically losers. I want people who actually want to really tune into what we're talking about, and they need to be supported. And the reason why it needs to be done this way is very simple. In our Western societies, we do not have good structure for that. So spiritual people suffer a lot. They work like waiters. They have to obtain degrees that are not up to their snuff. I'm not against this. I mean, I think that like in your case, it was a great idea that you went through this journey. But the question is, would it be more useful that if you had done something else? And at that time, because of financial pressures, you decided to do this. And not only financial pressures, you basically didn't know what you had to do. But all I'm just saying that, in this society, there's no monasteries where you can go. And right now we're segging into history again. Since we're in a natural environment, someone called and interrupted our presentation. And I don't remember where we're stopped, so you have something to say. And
well, I think we're close to wrapping up anyway.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come back to, I think this is something you could talk about for 2 hours or 5 minutes, which is students either implicitly or explicitly telling the teacher what they need.
This is actually a fantastic thing. The thing is, there is no teacher, there is no student. They appear only when you talk about life coaching. When you start talking about spiritual hierarchy, particularly at the place where I'm talking about, it becomes a co-creative activity. In other words, they're doing something together that they feel, I hate saying in their heart because it's not exactly that, but basically it's on a feeling level. By the way, the political BS that we're talking about, people who are into feeling rather than into logic and facts, this is very crude expression what we're talking about. Notice that those people who are into feelings tend to be spiritual religious people. And it's happening all over the world because we're moving in that direction. That is the aberration of this is leaving facts behind and going into feelings, and that needs to be done much more carefully in a much less stupid way. So going back to what you asked, this is not entirely true that there is no teachers and no students, because when a younger person comes in, particularly like this doesn't apply to you because you're getting old, but basically when someone is, say, in their 20s or teens, they can be absolutely spectacular spiritually, but in other ways they're not. They're just maybe a little bit less mature, less experienced. They do not know how to, I don't know which soap to use. This is specifically if they have full-blown expression of spiritual hierarchy, everything else kind of is nothing, and it can be taken care of. And you will see how these people behave. They never rebel. They just don't care about these things. So you'll just tell them, in your situation, if you do a little bit more meditation and you take a shower, twice a day because your body is overheating, it will be better for you. They're not going to be tame. They're not going to be obedient. They just know that I need to experiment with that, and they'll just go and do it. So to them, that ego thing about being rebellious doesn't. Well, it may occur, but it will be very little, because they're not trying to exercise their ego. But you have to have an ego, otherwise, you are not a human being. You're just different expression. Let's say that. Yeah, is it good enough?
I think so.
So I think we already have a really long video.
Yeah, it might get cut into 2 videos.
Well, whatever.
We'll see.
No, it's easier just to do one video, because it's all on one subject.
Okay.
All right. So, with your permission, I'm gonna wish you all have a lot of fun, and till later.